And we're obviously going to start at number 10 now with Alexis Flores. This guy is a fugitive from Honduras who was added to the FBI's most wanted list on June 2nd, 2007. He's wanted for the kidnapping, rape and murder of 5-year-old Iriana De Jesus. It happened in Philadelphia in 2000. Flores had been living as a homeless drifter under the fake name of Carlos. He was given work as a handyman in a local park. The park gave him shelter and clothing as well. On August 3rd of that year, 5 days after 5-year-old Iriana De Jesus had been reported missing, she was found dead in that very same basement that Flores had been given as his shelter. Police questioned the actual owner of the basement who told them about Flores. When they went to go and find him though, he was missing. Ever since then, he's been on the run. Amazingly, police in Arizona actually arrested him in 2002 for possession of forged documents. They never made the link to the previous case though, and instead deported him to Honduras. In 2006, his DNA sample from Arizona was positively matched to the crime scene in Philadelphia. The following year, he was then added to the FBI's most wanted list. He is considered armed and dangerous and could be in Honduras or even back in the US. At number 9 now, we have Eduardo Revillo. Now, as far as authorities are aware, Eduardo is the highest ranked leader in one of the most notorious prison gangs in North America, the Barrio Azteca. Now, Eduardo is thought to be responsible for organizing and distributing weapons and drugs on both sides of the US-Mexico border. The gang has been growing in power and numbers since they were founded back in 1986. Estimates even put their numbers at some 8,000 gang members strong, and Eduardo is at the head of all of them. He got this position by stabbing and shooting the former leader in the neck 7 times, and if he did that to his own boss, I think it's a safe bet that he's a bit of a danger to the public. He's thought to have undergone plastic surgery to alter his appearance and even changed his fingerprints to avoid detection. It's for all these reasons that the FBI is now offering $100,000 for any information leading to his capture. Next up at number 8 is a man by the name of William Bradford Bishop Jr. Now, this guy's story honestly sounds like something out of a movie. He apparently has 1 degree and 2 master's degrees in African studies and Italian. He spoke 5 languages fluently and was hired by the United States Foreign Service, where he worked all over the world. With his wife and his family by his side, he honestly seemed like a model citizen. But on March 1st, 1976, he was told he would not be getting the promotion he was looking for at that time. Now, Bishop had been suffering from depression and did not take the news well at all. He went home and killed his wife, his mother. By the time police knew what had happened, he had fled. People have apparently cited him since then in almost every single major European country in the last 40 years. Although it's been a long time, the FBI hasn't given up, and they even released this sculpture showing what an aged bishop might look like today. For anyone who can point them to William Bradford Bishop Jr., the reward is $100,000. And now at number 7, we have Robert William Fisher. On April 10th, 2001, Robert William Fisher is suspected of shooting his wife in the back of her head before blowing up the family home. By the time the flames were under control, Fisher was on the run. It was thought he committed the murders because he was worried his wife was about to divorce him, and he didn't want his kids to go through the same torment he went through when his own parents had divorced many years before. Now, over the next 2 years, the FBI investigated hundreds of reports of his sightings, but nothing was ever found, despite the $100,000 reward for his arrest. Okay, moving on to number 6, we've got Brenda Delgado and a story of very twisted jealousy. On September 2nd, 2015, 35-year-old dentist Kendra Hatcher was gunned down in a Dallas parking garage by a gunman with a getaway driver. Brenda Delgado did not pull the trigger in this murder, but after a police investigation, it was discovered that she had orchestrated the whole thing. She was the mastermind. She did this because she was jealous of Kendra for dating her ex-boyfriend and had heard that he had introduced her to his parents and was planning a romantic trip with her to Mexico. The FBI said the murder was done in cold blood and was calculated months in advance. Brenda was initially questioned about the murders but fled at the first opportunity she had. Investigators into this crime had their suspicions that she was hiding out in Mexico, and in April 2016, they were proved right. Delgado was captured in Mexico, but she remains on the FBI's most wanted list because they are still trying to extradite her back to the US.
We are now at our 5th and halfway mark today with Hazel Leota. In August of 1999, Hazel Leota placed an ad in a Lonely Hearts column looking for love. That's when she met Charles Baker. Immediately, she was attracted to Charles because he was a widow who recently got a large sum of money from his insurance. So shortly after meeting, the two moved in together. In September of 1998, Charles was found dead in his house. His car and $45,000 of his money was missing, and so was Hazel. She had killed him and took off with his cash and car. Turns out Hazel wasn't who she said she was. No shocker. In fact, she had over 25 different aliases. She's also been married 10 times and is wanted in Lincoln, Nebraska. The last time anyone saw her was in December of 1998 when she was spotted in a truck stop near Wheat Ridge, Colorado. She hasn't been spotted since. If she's alive to this day, she would be in her 70s.
Coming in at number 4 now, we've got Jason Derek Brown. If you guys are wondering where all the famous robbers are on this list, then Jason Brown certainly fits the bill. On November the 29th, 2004, a security guard by the name of Robert Keith Palmares was collecting the money from a movie theater in Phoenix, Arizona after Thanksgiving. As he was leaving with the money, Jason Brown walked up to him, shot him dead, and took the money. The manhunt was very quick on Brown's heels. They actually tracked him down over the following week, and at one point they missed him when they turned up to a house by just 1 hour. Now unfortunately, they wouldn't ever be that close to him again. The trail eventually went cold in Portland. Since 2013, the FBI have actually doubled the amount of money they usually offer to $200,000 if someone can help them find Jason Derek Brown. Oh, and if you guys are thinking he looks quite a lot like the famous Hollywood actor Sean Penn, well, you're not wrong, he does. The FBI themselves have mistakenly arrested Sean Penn's body double because they thought he was Jason Derek Brown twice. Yeah, on 2 separate occasions. Poor guy, honestly, he just wants to look like Sean Penn for a living. What's the problem? Leave the guy alone. It's not his fault he has that face. Number 1 most wanted person in America, Victor Manuel Garina. Victor has been on the FBI's most wanted list for over 30 years, the longest of anyone on the list. That's part of the reason why he's actually so high on it. Now, unlike other people we've talked about, Victor didn't kill or rape anyone. On September the 12th, 1983, he arrived at his job as an armored car guard. That day, he visited a Wells Fargo depot in Connecticut with his 2 co-workers. Victor tackled them and bound them up. To make sure they didn't resist any further, he injected them with some sort of mixture of aspirin and water. Victor then set about loading $7 million into his car from the safe there. That's about $17 million by today's standards. He then fled to Cuba. Over the years, the FBI have identified 17 suspects who were involved in this heist, and they all belong to the group known as Los Macheteros. They tracked down 16 of them, but Victor has never been found. He's the only one still on the run. Because of the amount of money that was stolen for an outlawed group and the fact that he has been on the run for over 30 years, the FBI are offering an astonishing $1 million for any information leading to his arrest. For the first time in many years, the relationship between Cuba and America seems to be reaching a point where capturing Victor Manuel Garina might be a real possibility.
Robert Fisher then blew up his residential home in Scottsdale, Arizona. Investigators believe he murdered his family because he felt threatened by his wife's intent to divorce.
Justice for a Scottsdale mom and her 2 kids after they were horrifically killed. Now, 15 years later, the images of that crime continue to capture the nation's attention.
It's been about 17 years and still the FBI doesn't know his whereabouts. The question is, how smart is this guy to be able to live another life for all these years? Robert is also currently the longest lasting person currently on the FBI most wanted list. So think about that. The FBI most wanted list, they put a lot of resources into finding that person, but yet they just can't find this guy. The youngest guy currently on the FBI top 10 list, we have Alejandro Roselos Castello at number 9. He's an American criminal that is only 17 years old, and he killed a 23-year-old woman. That woman was someone Alejandro dated. This teenager is very dangerous.
The FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 for information leading directly to the arrest of alleged murderer Alejandro Castillo. The 18-year-old is the latest addition to the FBI's 10 most wanted fugitives list.
The murder took place in Charlotte, North Carolina back in 2016. And ever since then, the police and the FBI are unable to track this kid down. Number 8, do you guys remember Kony 2012? Well, Joseph Kony is known as the leader of the Lord's Resistance Army that is responsible for abducting as many as 2 million people. Is this real life right now? Kony also forced some of these children to kill their own parents. Well, the war against Kony started in 2012. $800 million was spent to try to track this man down, but over the years, there was no successful to kill or capture this man. There was a YouTube video talking in detail about who Kony was and the massive problem happening in our society because of this man. The video was titled Kony 2012 and it currently has over 100 million views.
If they knew, Kony would have been stopped long ago.
Let the world, let the international community take justice to him there. Follow him wherever he is. First, to rescue our children. And secondly, to deliver the justice.
We are determined to cooperate with any friend of Uganda to ensure that this mindless killing and slaughter is ended.
Alright, moving on to number 7 now, we have Jason Derek Brown. This fugitive from LA has been on the FBI's most wanted list since July 2007 for a first-degree murder and armed robbery that occurred 3 years prior. In 2004, Robert Keith Palomares, a 24-year-old armored truck guard, was carrying the weekend deposits outside a theater in Phoenix. At 10 a.m., Brown ambushed him with a gun, shooting him in the head 5 times. Brown then took a bag containing $56,000 in cash and fled down an alley on a bicycle. Palomares was transported to a hospital where he was pronounced dead. Within a week, police had issued an arrest warrant for Brown. He fled to Nevada, then California, then Oregon before disappearing completely off the grid. Police have 200 leads about where he might be, although they often conflict with each other. He could be in the US, Canada, or even France or Thailand. The FBI is now offering up to $200,000 for information. Halfway through now, guys, at number 5, we have Glenn Stewart Godwin. Now, in 1983, Godwin was sentenced to life in prison for the first-degree murder of a former friend who he had stabbed 26 times with a butcher's knife. Just 4 years into his time in prison, he escaped through a storm drain by crawling through it for 230 meters. Now, I'd say you couldn't write that kind of stuff, but yeah, Stephen King did. At the end of the pipe, he found a raft in the river that was left for him by either his wife or a former cellmate. They had also painted arrows on the rocks along the river to direct him to safety. Now, both of them were eventually convicted of helping Godwin escape, but the man himself managed to get away to Mexico. There, he was arrested for drug trafficking, put in prison, and while the US was trying to extradite him back into the country, he killed a fellow drug dealer in prison. Now, this delayed the extradition process, and guess what Godwin did with all this extra time? He escaped. Yeah, again, you really couldn't write this. It's been 25 years since that second escape, and all the FBI seems to know is that he's somewhere out there in Latin America, and they're offering $100,000 if someone can narrow that down a bit and help them arrest this man, who they say is still very much armed and very dangerous.
Alright, moving on to number 4 now, we have John Patrick Hannan, who is actually known as the world's most successful prison fugitive who has been on the run for the past 60 years. That's a 6-0. John Hannan was just 22 years old when he was arrested and put into jail. He was sentenced for 21 months behind bars for stealing a car and assaulting 2 police officers. But he was able to break out of the facility just 30 days after. This guy is either a super genius or just a big dum-dum. I say super genius because he was able to be in the run for the past 60 years. And I say he's a big dum-dum because who escapes from prison when you only have to serve a 21-month sentence? Good behavior might even have gotten him out earlier. Who knows?
Next up, number 3 now, we have Semyon Mogilevich. This Ukrainian-born man is a Russian mafia boss, or rather, he is the boss of bosses. He is at the helm of most Russian mafia syndicates in the world. His vast empire has resulted in the FBI referring to him as the most dangerous mobster in the world. Mogilevich is involved in weapons trafficking, contract murders, extortion, drug trafficking, and prostitution on an international scale. He hasn't lived a very secretive life either, and his homes and private life are all there to see on his Wikipedia page. The problem for international law enforcement is how well connected and protected he is. In 2006, former Russian Secret Service member Alexander Litvinenko alleged that Mogilevich had a good relationship with a Russian president known as Vladimir Putin. Litvinenko was assassinated via radiation poisoning not long after that allegation. He used to be on the FBI's top 10 most wanted list, but was removed back in 2015. This is because the USA and Russia doesn't actually have an extradition treaty, meaning Russia is not obliged to hand him over to the US if they do catch him, basically making him untouchable. Next up at number 2 now, we have Shane O'Brien. He's a suspected killer who has been on the run for 2 years from UK police. He's now on Interpol's worldwide most wanted list. The 30-year-old is alleged to have murdered 21-year-old Josh Hansen in an unprovoked knife attack in a bar in West London in 2015. According to witnesses, O'Brien removed an item from his coat pocket and plunged it into Josh's neck. He was pronounced dead at the scene. A £50,000 reward is now being offered for any information leading to his prosecution. He's described as white, 6 feet tall, with grey eyes, dark brown hair, a full beard, and a tattoo on his back of an owl holding a skull.
And finally, at number 1, we have Robert William Fisher, who appears on the FBI most wanted list. If you find this man and catch him, you will be rewarded at least $100,000, which is why people actually make it their career finding these type of people who have bounties on their heads. Getting back to Robert William, he is wanted for the 2001 murder of his wife Mary.
Let's start with our number 10, Fidel Urbina. Mr. Urbina is a Mexican man who has been on the run from authorities since 1999 after sexually assaulting 2 women in Chicago and then killing one of them just 7 months apart. The manhunt has been ongoing ever since. Now, back in 2006, an arrest warrant was even issued in Mexico just in case he ever went back there again. As the years went by with no information about him, Fidel was finally added to the FBI's top 10 fugitives in June 2012. Despite this, the authorities have had no luck at all in finding him in the years since then. The FBI are now offering $100,000 for information leading to his arrest. He's said to be between 5'11" and 6'1", weighing 170 pounds, with black hair, brown eyes, and with acne scars on the right side of his face.
Starting off this countdown, we have Eugene Palmer. Eugene Palmer is said to be the oldest man to make it on the FBI most wanted list. On September 24th of 2012, Eugene Palmer shot and killed his daughter-in-law Tammy. Apparently, Eugene Palmer's son John Palmer was having a rough time with his relationship with Tammy. Eventually, they started seeing other people, and Tammy filed for a restraining order against John. This made Eugene very angry. Days before the murder, Eugene confronted Tammy and they had a huge argument. On the day of her murder, he shot her from a distance before fleeing in his truck, which was later found abandoned. Despite multiple searches, Palmer has never been found. The FBI is offering a reward of up to $100,000 to anyone who can provide helpful information leading to his arrest. And at number 9, we have Robert Fisher. Robert Fisher has been on the run since 2001. As of now, he would be 60 years old. It started on April 9th, 2001, when Fisher took the lives of his wife and 2 children before blowing up their house. He was charged with a triple homicide and arson, and he's been on the run ever since. On April 20th of that year, his car was found in a forest near Payson, Arizona, but Robert was nowhere to be found. To this day, he remains a very wanted fugitive. Fisher has notable surgical scars on his lower back and is said to chew tobacco regularly. There is currently a $100,000 reward for information leading directly to his arrest. However, it's said that he is in possession of a number of weapons, including a high-powered rifle, so he is armed and dangerous. It's believed he's in New Mexico or Florida, but the FBI doesn't know for sure. In our 8th spot today, we have Victor Manuel Jarina. Victor Manuel is one of the longest criminals on the FBI's most wanted list. Victor was a car guard working for the Wells Fargo Express Company. On September of 1983, Victor arrived at work before pointing a gun at his supervisors and handcuffing them. He then stole $7 million in cash before fleeing. This was the largest cash robbery in the US history at that time. He had planned this with 2 other men, but had turned on them and took the money for himself. On May 14th of 1984, he became a member of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives. In 2010, he became the fugitive to have spent the most time on that list. To this day, there are no real leads as to where he may be, but it's thought that he's living in Cuba. The FBI is still offering $1 million reward for information leading to his arrest. Moving on to number 7, we have William Bradford Bishop. William Bradford Bishop Jr. is a former United States Foreign Service officer who is now a wanted fugitive. On March 1st of 1976, Bishop started to spiral after not receiving the promotion that he really wanted. He then left his work early, drove to the bank, withdrew money, and then bought a sledgehammer, gas can, shovel, and pitchfork. He then returned home where he killed his wife, mother, and 3 sons. He then drove the body several miles away before burying them in a wooded swamp, and then he set that area on fire. There are currently no leads as to where he might be now. If he was alive, he would be 85 years old. Now, over the years, people have claimed to have seen him overseas, but there have been no solid leads. It's believed, though, that he's somewhere in Europe, which really narrows it down. In our 6th spot today, we have Arnaldo Jimenez. Arnaldo is wanted for the death of his wife, Estrella Carrara. On May 11th, 2012, the pair got married at Chicago City Hall, and they were as happy as they could ever be. That night, they had dinner with some family and friends before heading to a nightclub. However, on their way home, the couple got in a heated argument. It resulted in him fatally stabbing his new wife before dragging her body into their apartment. He then placed her in a bathtub and fled. After not picking her kids up from a family member's house, people began to worry, and she was reported missing to the police. It's thought that he fled to Mexico. A reward of up to $100,000 is available for information leading to his arrest.
Moving on to number 5 now, we have Dawood Ibrahim. Meet the most wanted man in India. Ibrahim is the head of a 5,000 strong organized crime network called the D Company. Now, they're responsible for everything from drug trafficking to contract killings in countries such as India, Pakistan, and the United Arab Emirates. Ibrahim is personally wanted on charges of murder, extortion, targeted killing, drug trafficking, and terrorism, to name but a few. In 2003, he was designated as a global terrorist with head money of $25 million US. According to Washington, it's thought he uses the same smuggling routes as Al-Qaeda and has worked with them on multiple occasions. He's thought to have been involved with them in the November 2008 Mumbai attacks, bombings which killed 257 people and wounded 713 more. It's thought that he's also linked to the Bollywood film industry. There have been multiple reports of him financing movies, but also threatening producers to get what he wants.
In our 4th spot today, we have Alvin Scott. Alvin Scott is wanted in a double murder. In August of 2001, his wife left him and was living with a male friend in the meantime, and Alvin did not like this. On the day of their divorce proceedings, Alvin stalked the two and killed them both. Alvin has more than a decade's experience in military training and was an experienced PI, so he was able to stalk the two and shoot and kill them from his car. He then fled and has been on the run ever since. It's believed that he has multiple fake passports and multiple fake identities, and due to his experience in the military, he's been hard to track. He is one of the FBI's top 10 most wanted fugitives, and there's a $100,000 reward for any leads on his whereabouts. In our 3rd spot today, we have Joe Matthew Constance. On June 5th, 2011, Joe Matthew Constance broke into his ex-wife's house looking for her. However, she was not there. There were, however, other people there, so he threatened them with a gun, being like, "Tell me where she is or I'll kill you." They did not reveal where his wife was. So Joe searched the whole house and eventually did find her on the property. He then shot and killed her before fleeing. He was charged with first-degree murder, aggravated assault, and aggravated burglary. However, he's still never been caught. There is a $20,000 reward out there for any information leading to the arrest and conviction of Joe. Moving on to number 2, we have Jason Derek Brown. On November 29, 2004 in Phoenix, Arizona, Jason Derek Brown shot and killed an armored car guard outside of a movie theater before fleeing with the money. Since 2004, he has been wanted for murder and armed robbery. Now, Jason portrayed himself as a wealthy man, but in reality, he was tens of thousands of dollars in debt. This was his motive for the murder and robbery. If he's still alive, he would be 52. FBI has made it clear that Jason is armed and very dangerous. There is a $200,000 reward for anyone who can provide information on Brown's whereabouts. And in our number one spot today, we have Badrush Kumar Patel. After getting married in India, Badrush Kumar and his wife Palak left their home country to start a new life in the United States. In fact, they both got jobs at Dunkin' Donuts and they worked together. On April 12th of 2015, while working a night shift, Palak was on the phone with her family, crying, saying that she wanted to go back to India. In fact, the pair's visas had expired. A while later, he led her to a back room in the store and stabbed her multiple times. This was after the two had an argument. She wanted to go home to India and he wanted to stay in the US. After taking his wife's life, he fled the scene. Now, customers at the store grew concerned after they realized that no one was in the store to serve them. A police officer just so happened to be nearby and decided to check out the scene. That's when he found Palak. Badrush Kumar has been on the run ever since. A $100,000 reward is available to anyone who can provide information leading to his arrest.